This is Rick Rule for Rule Investment Media and the Rule Classroom, sponsors of the 2025 Rule Natural Resources Investment Symposium, July 7 through 11 in Boca, Raton, Florida, or via live stream from the comfort and convenience of your own home. However you choose to attend, there's a few things you need to know. First of all, over 4 days, we will give you more information than you can possibly absorb. And to that end, a couple things. We are making the entire proceedings tapes available to you, the recordings, irrespective of how you attend, and you'll need them. The other thing that we're doing is that we are interviewing every exhibitor and most of the speakers before the conference. That gives you the ability at places like the Rule Classroom or YouTube to check out the people who will be exhibitors at the conference so that you can allocate your time and your capital more efficiently at the conference. We also will have discussion groups around many topics at the conference and many companies in the Rule Classroom so that you can compare notes with other investors. The group knowledge is better than any individual knowledge. Disclosure of conflict of interest. No public company exhibitor can come to the conference if their shares aren't owned in the accounts of the conference sponsors. That means I own shares in i-80 Gold. Is that a conflict? Yes. Is it a guarantee that every single exhibitor at the Rule Natural Resources Investment Symposium has been vetted? Yes, both are true. So let's get on with it. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing Richard Young, CEO of i-80 Gold. He has a long career in mining finance, and we're going to get to that right now. Richard, first of all, thank you for your sponsorship and support of the Rule Investment Symposium. Tell us something about who you are, why you came to be CEO of i-80 Gold, and frankly, why investors should care about the answers to the nosy questions that you're going to be peppered with now.
Well, thank you, Rick, and we're looking forward to the conference. By way of my background, I started with Barrick Gold 35 years ago. There were 25 people in the corporate office. I worked in every department. And since leaving Barrick in the early 2000s, I've been involved in permitting and building companies over the last 20 years, financing, and not only myself, but the group that we now have engaged with us, built Teranga Gold from a little over 100,000 ounce producer to a mid-tier and sold that to Endeavor back in 2021. And so with all the refinancing and the capital required, our team has been there and done that and looking forward to doing it again.
Well, personally, I want to thank you for your efforts at Barrick. I was a shareholder, and I want to thank you for your efforts at Teranga, too, where I was a shareholder. So let me say at the outset that I've been a beneficiary of your efforts a couple times in the past. So thank you for that. Let's move on now to your current incarnation in i-80. Tell me what i-80 is about. Give me the value proposition from, 10,000 feet up.
Well, thank you, Rick. So we own 4 historic producing gold mines. They've produced a lot of gold in the past. And we've got 14 million ounces of gold and over 200 million ounces of silver. And we're simply redeveloping those deposits that once operated. And we believe that we can create a mid-tier gold producer with the capability of producing potentially 500,000 ounces of gold per year or more through 2050.
The i-80 moniker suggests that these ounces are concentrated in northern Nevada. A, is that true? And B, why?
That is correct. Most 3 of the 4 are located right off of i-80, so infrastructure is fantastic. But again, there are 2, very prospective gold belts in Nevada. We're on the Eureka Battle Mountain Trend that hosts a number of world-class deposits, and this is just part of that geology. But everything's very close together. There's a lot of synergies between the 4 operations.
Can you briefly, because we don't have too much time, briefly describe the assets and talk to us about both their attributes and their challenges?
Okay. So first of all, we've been talking for a number of years about the hub and spoke model. So we have an autoclave and process facility at Lone Tree, and we're going to develop 3 underground portals to feed that Lone Tree autoclave. Collectively, they'll, when all 3 are in operation, produce about 250,000 ounces of gold at about $1,500 AISC. Then beyond that, where most of the value in the company today is we've got 2 oxide open pit projects. Granite Creek open pit that'll produce roughly 130,000 ounces a year, but the flagship is Mineral Point. Mineral Point is a gold and silver project that, based on the PEA, will produce 282,000 ounces over a 17-year life, but that is just the beginning. We do expect that project to grow, as all of them to grow over time.
The attributes that you describe have been in place for a few years, but I think it's fair to say in Canadian parlance that i-80 got out over the front of their skis a little bit. Can you talk to us about the recapitalization effort? How much has been accomplished and how much remains to accomplish? This seems to be a classical financial turnaround story where the company was asset rich but became cash poor post the Equinox transaction, as an example. So tell us something about restarting i-80 Gold.
Yeah, that's a challenge. And I would say that the company for the past probably 12 months has been what we call internally balance sheet purgatory. And so, we put the development plan out last fall. To execute on that plan and create a mid-tier gold producer, we're going to need about $700 million in capital. $200 million to be able to restructure the current debt facilities that are on the balance sheet, $500 million to take the balance forward. 350 of that is the refurbishment of the autoclave, 150 is to do everything else. And Rick, as you probably know very well, the toughest dollar to get is the first. And so, we raised equity, we raised about $175 million net. The terms weren't wonderful. We had to include a half warrant with them, but we got the capital we needed, and that's allowing us now to move forward. The biggest piece of the recapitalization will be a senior debt facility. We're targeting roughly about $350 million. They're with parties that we've worked with in the past. So, as I look at my career and the career of the team, we've never been blessed with a lot of cash. So we've always been in this position of being a junior mining company that needs capital. And so we've got long relationships with lenders, both bank lenders, alt lenders, royalty companies, that will really leverage off of as we complete the recapitalization over the course of the next 12 months.
It's funny these days that speculators in particular look askance at half warrants. What a warrant really is a built-in financing with no commission if you execute. Certainly from a check writer's point of view, I love a warrant, but I also like a well-structured financial package for a company that needs capital because, as I say, if you execute, you have a financing that you don't have to pass the cup for. It's already in place. So from my point of view, congratulations. Tell me something about the senior facility, where you are with that, whether or not you are within the covenants or at least safe with regards to your existing facility.
Great question. So we've got some convertible debt facilities in place, and we're in line with those covenants. The first convertible matures June of next year, so that's when we target to have the new facility in place. We're going to complete 5 feasibility studies over the course of the next 12 months that will backstop that senior facility. We're in active conversations with the 3 parties that we're looking to lead that facility, but we're also having discussions with alternative lenders as well. So we'll be running parallel paths between the 2 financing alternatives through the course of the next 12 months.
And then in terms of growth, it's apparent that the autoclave is an important part of that. For those people who aren't as familiar with mining as we hope they will be in 5 years, tell them what an autoclave is. Tell them how many permitted autoclaves there are in Nevada. In other words, the unique characteristic of this asset, and tell us why they're germane to your plans and perhaps to tolling plans for neighbors.
Yes, well, okay, so an autoclave essentially oxidizes the ore so that we can run it through the carbon leach process that most oxide operations have. But that it's either roasting or autoclaving that's required to do what nature does over billions of years. So there's only 3 permitted autoclaves in Nevada. We own one of them. And so what that autoclave allows us to do is develop our refractory ores. Those are ores that require autoclave processing in order to be able to produce that gold. Now, you mentioned earlier about maybe this is a strategic asset for us. Well, we think that we're actually going to have that facility full for at least the next 25 plus years. So we've got 5 deposits there in the development plan that will take production to 650,000 ounces. But there's another project, Rick, that you would know well, the Lone Tree open pit, 3 million ounces at just under 2 grams, that is refractory, that ultimately will start to fill that autoclave once the underground operations start to mature. So we actually think that we're going to have that autoclave full for at least the next 25 or 30 years.
I think that's personally, I believe that's an asset that people don't understand well. The permitting challenges around autoclaves, let's just say they're formidable. I'm delighted that you don't have to go through that again, that you've, in fact, already done that. So tell me something about the sequencing of these deposits. Obviously, restructuring this debt requires debt service, and growing requires a surplus over debt service. So tell us something about the sequencing.
Okay, so we're currently ramping up our first underground operation. We're going to start construction of the second underground operation in the third quarter. Later this year, early next year, we'll start the refurbishment of the autoclave in that process facility with the goal of having both the 2 underground operations and the refurbishment of the autoclave done by the end of 2027, early 28. At that point, we would be producing between 150 and 200,000 ounces of gold at AISC probably between $1,700, $1,800, including corporate G&A. And then at that time, we should have permits for the next 2 operations that we're going to develop, third underground mine, as well as the first open pit. And because these are brownfields restarts, there's not a lot of capital required to get these operations moving forward. So we expect the second 2 operations to be built within 18 months and producing gold. So by the end of 2029, we should have 4 producing mines producing between 350 and 400,000 ounces of gold per year at probably AISC of $1,500 or $1,600 an ounce. At that point, we'll have permits, or would expect to have permits for Mineral Point, which we actually think will likely be between 3 and 350,000 ounces per year for plus 20 years once we complete the feasibility study. Because, and you may recall, this Ruby Hill, where Mineral Point is, was owned by Barrick. And the last time they did calculated reserves on this was 15 years ago. They probably used $800 to $1,000 gold. So now, as we look in a higher gold price environment, a lot of that drilling, particularly to the north, is going to grow. And at our investor day on March the 6th, our VPX, who is fantastic, indicated that they were confident that they could add 1 million to 2 million ounces to that deposit just as they complete that drill program. So, this is going to be an incredible group of assets, all in Nevada, that will produce a lot of gold for a very long period of time. And there aren't many other companies can make that claim.
So, Richard, what you've told us is that you have 5, perhaps plus, existing deposits in northern Nevada in a fairly efficient cluster. You have well in excess of 10 million ounces of gold that doesn't need to be discovered. You've already discovered it.
Yeah.
And you have a production sequence that in 5 years should make you a 400,000 to 500,000 ounce producer. What am I paying for this? What's the market capitalization? What's the enterprise value?
Boy, I don't look at the stock every day, but post this offering, market cap might be 400 million US, enterprise value 600. We put out 5 PAs at the end of the first quarter. The NAV at $2,900 gold was 4.5 billion. And we believe each and every one of those projects will grow as we complete infill drill programs. And look, this is Nevada. So I had previously worked in West Africa, as you well know, and an ounce is an ounce isn't all the same. And shareholders pay more when they're in Nevada. And we would target moving from our current discount to NAV to somewhere around 1 times NAV, given the location of those assets, the cost profile. and the growth that will come forward as we move into the 2030s and 2040s.
Richard, if our attendees and students want to learn more, and they should, who do they contact specifically, and how do they contact?
Okay, so Katerina DeRosa is our Director of Investor Relations. Do you want me to give you her email address?
Either email address or phone, however she's most comfortable being contacted. I just want I
Okay.
want my attendees to reach a living, breathing human being.
All right, Rick, I will give you both. So her email address is cderosa@i80gold.com. And her phone number is 1-866-525-6450. And just, Rick, as a side note, Katerina, this is the third company we've worked together in, as most of the corporate group is. So it's a great group, and she would look forward to hearing from each and every one of your clients. And we look forward to attending your conference. We're really excited about
it. You have my guarantee that as a consequence of the conference, she will be gainfully employed. Thank you, first of all, for your efforts on behalf of investors over 30 years, this investor in particular. And thank you, too, for your sponsorship and support of the Natural Resources Investment Symposium. We look forward, Albert and I, to hosting you in Boca Raton.
Well, I look forward to it. Thank you.